Law&Mediaite.
There is a legal or law point of view in what's happening in the news.
5 devices in the building that
sends its people.
Welcome back. My hosting day is always made when we have a Mediaite segment. I love this segment. Aidan McLaughlin, managing editor at Mediaite, is with us. And Aidan, I don't drink coffee anymore. I gave it up a couple of months ago, but what I've replaced it with is going on Mediaite.com's website. And to my wandering eyes should appear is an Epstein article of a blockbuster that you guys printed. What's going on?
Right, so there's actually a lot of developments in the Jeffrey Epstein case. As you know, he's a wealthy financier, and he's just been arrested and charged with sex trafficking of dozens of underage girls. Now, one of his accusers, a new accuser actually, who's not part of the case in the Southern District of New York, appeared on the Today Show this morning for an interview with Savannah Guthrie, and I want you to watch what she said.
I just did what he told me to do. I was really scared. I didn't necessarily think that he was, going to rape me.
Did he hold you there?
Yeah.
No question in your mind, he knew you did not want that to happen.
Oh, yeah. No, he definitely, yeah. There was no way. I was like, I don't want to say I was screaming or anything of that nature, but I was terrified, and I was telling him to stop. Please stop,
So, the angle here, and it's actually putting a lot of political pressure on a member of Donald Trump's cabinet. Alex Acosta, who is currently the labor secretary in the Trump administration, was actually the U.S. attorney in Florida when original charges were brought against Epstein more than a decade ago. And he actually ended up getting a plea deal that many have described as a sweetheart deal, where he only ended up serving 13 months in jail. He had to register as a sex offender. But a lot of people are saying that that's incredibly lenient. And now the Southern District is mounting these new charges, and his victims are hoping that maybe he gets punished a little bit more significantly. But Alex Acosta has to speak for that, and he's actually holding a press conference at 2:30 today where he's going to answer questions about how he came to that deal with Epstein and his lawyers.
I got to be honest with you, Aidan. I was just saying before we went on air, and I didn't know that the 2:30 press conference was about that. Some thought that there may be a resignation in the cards. But the last thing I would tell him to do, if I were his attorney, is speak about this case and your decision-making process at all. Because anybody who's ever held the position that I've held for a nanosecond or does the work that I did knows that this is rotten to the core. So you're going to talk yourself into some trouble, because I believe, with all due respect, in some way, shape, or form, he should be investigated.
Sure. And, he has people from the administration are pretty insistent that he's not going to be resigning. And Donald Trump actually gave comments to reporters yesterday where he said he feels very bad for Alex Acosta, that he's being criticized over this. So it doesn't appear right now that he has any intention of resigning, despite the mounting criticism and calls from Democrats that he step aside. So it's unclear whether or not he's going to be moving in that direction. But it's certainly facing a huge amount of criticism for the deal that he reached with Alan Dershowitz, who was Epstein's lawyer at the time, who actually appeared on television this morning and said that the deal was not a sweetheart deal. He said that it was actually sort of it wasn't lenient at all for what Epstein was facing.
Well, I don't understand what Mr. Dershowitz is. I don't see his name on. I have right in front of me the non-prosecution agreement. His name doesn't appear there, but maybe he was on the team, and now 7 years later, he was the guy that made it all happen. But let me just explain something to you. I have a guy who had a singular instance of interstate travel with somebody who was legal in New Jersey with the age of consent, but was not in New York because it's 16 and 17. I've been trying to put this out as a public service message. That was interstate transportation of a minor that is under the age of 18, and if you take a photograph or anything of that nature, then it becomes the production and or possession of child pornography, which carry mandatory minimums of 5 to 15 years, respectively. And that guy just got sentenced to 7 years in federal prison, as well as a 3-year state prison sentence. They're going to run concurrent. So don't talk to me and tell me that. And by the way, the prosecutors were talking about what a sweetheart deal I got in that case. It was done in the open court. It was done with the victims knowing about it. It was done with the judge having a complete probation report about every single fact. The judge was uncomfortable even accepting the deal my client got, thinking it was too lenient. But if the victims were on board and the prosecution and defense felt it was appropriate, he would hold his nose and go along with it. And you're telling me a guy who's got 80 victims who meets a prosecutor who meets somebody at a Marriott on the side without any investigators or legal people present, who allow essentially the defense attorneys, we have emails to prepare this non-prosecution agreement that not only exonerates the accomplices in the case, but other co-defendants who were not named, after the FBI had done an investigation of thousands and thousands of pages of victims from across the United States, as well as other countries that are being trafficked into this man's lair, if you will, and that this was an appropriate deal, makes me sick to my stomach. That's not a question, it's a comment. What would you like to say in response to it?
I mean, it's certainly the feelings of especially prosecutors in the Southern District in New York. I mean, they clearly have fresh evidence of this. They did a raid of his Manhattan townhouse and found hundreds of photos, they said, of girls in sort of suggestive poses and videos as well. And some of the evidence that they found there, they said, could have been girls who were underaged. And they're actually calling on more victims to come out and tell their stories to prosecutors to try and help their case. So I think they share in your frustration with Acosta's original deal with Epstein's lawyers. And I'm going to bring Gene Rossi in on this real quick, Aidan, if you don't mind. Sure. Gene, the other thing that really bothers me about this is not only do I know that this is corrupt to the core. If a heart surgeon does a surgery, I say this before, I don't know whether they did it right or wrong, but I trust when other doctors say, oh my God, they didn't do that the right way. You and me both know what went on here. Me and you, but it's like the Smollett case with Kim Foxx. You can smell it a mile away. And you know what really disturbs me? Not only on a case of this significance where young women are being victimized and trafficked into this guy's place for sexual favors of a really bizarre, strange nature. They had the nerve when these girls when he pled guilty in state court to call them prostitutes. 14-year-olds can't be prostitutes. 14-year-old girls can't consent to sex. It's demeaning to them. They weren't even aware of it. And the coup de grace on the whole thing is, I feel bad for every defendant. I'm going to speak on the other side right now. All those defendants who are getting hammered with massive sentences that I think are complete overkill, that are hitting a fly with a sledgehammer, that have to turn around and say, you see, if I don't have money, if I don't have power, if I don't have fame, if I don't have connections, and I don't have what I believe allegedly is a corrupt prosecutor, I serve his time.
I'm going to throw out a motive here. Alex Acosta was on the way out. He knew in 07 and 08 that probably Barack Obama would be president of the United States. So Acosta's trying to lay the seeds for when he goes into private practice. And I got to tell you this, the evidence of the shady, disgusting deal is when he had a secret meeting with the defense attorneys off campus outside the U.S. Attorney's Office. Exhibit number 2 is that they didn't tell the victims of this non-prosecution agreement and this sweetheart deal, which I agree with you, Bob. If it were anybody else, maybe a different race or different level of income, they would have been hammered. And you told me about your case, a 7-year deal, and you told me that the prosecutor wanted to hammer your guy. And he got 7 years, and they still think he got a light sentence.
Right, for a quality of a case that is significantly not anywhere near the breadth and intake of this. Aidan, and in addition to this, he was allowed to serve, the state attorney's not off the hook, in my opinion, with this either. He's allowed to serve his term in the county jail, only part of his term in the county jail, which he was given a special accommodation cell so that he had it nice and cushy in the jail, and was then allowed to have work release 12 hours a day in his posh business that he set out there in Palm County, even though he wasn't eligible for work release under their rules and regulations. And then lastly, Aidan, Cyrus Vance, if I understand his office, actually made an application to a court to reduce his Sex Offender Registration Act from the most highest tier, the highest predatory tier, to the lowest, and a judge rebuked that request and said, I cannot even believe you would come with a person that had this kind of history and actually try to give him a break on his registration. Aidan, thoughts?
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of madness. And also you have to remember that one of the things that Acosta was sort of boasting about when they got this deal was that at least we got Epstein to register as a sex offender. So that was clearly like one of the sort of trophies that they held up out of this case. So for them to try and reduce it is sort of absurd on its face.
That happens in every conviction for a sex offense. It's community supervision or parole supervision for life. You register as a sex offender. They didn't get anything there. That's done as a matter of law. And you know what's really interesting, Gene Rossi, is that the police department that investigated this and did a great job, as did the Miami Herald, in reporting this debacle. They were uncomfortable about the way state prosecutors were handling this case, so they referred the case over to the FBI, saying, well, the FBI will definitely take this serious. It's got so many international components to it. It's got the interstate facilities, as we call it, the phones and the computers and so on and so forth. Lots of victims. It involves human trafficking, a lot of human trafficking. And then this happens. Gene.
Well, let me tell you this. With the utmost respect to the U.S. Attorney of Southern District, and I got to compliment them. I hope Barr doesn't put his dirty, disgusting fingers into that office, but I got to compliment SDNY for charging him. But there is no accident. I got to repeat this. There is no accident that this case is assigned to the Public Corruption Unit of SDNY, and here's why. There are probably, I am predicting, a treasure trove of elected, appointed, or career public servants, current and past, whose names are going to come up. And I can't tell you, Cy Vance, I don't know what's going on with him, but there's something going on when he makes a request to go from Category 3 to Category 1. This guy should serve the rest of his life in jail if the allegations are true.
Of course, and Gene Rossi, we've done this work for a very, very long time. We know when something is rotten in Denmark, and this is it. The fact that they did get away with it for a significant period of time, to me, I agree with you. We're going to hear a lot that's going to go on here. You know what really upsets me, my last point, guys, is that as prosecutors, and I was one for 6 years that ran an agency with 20 other of my colleagues who all acted ethically and with integrity and in openness and transparency and would never take a private meeting with a defense lawyer without our investigators and other legal staff being present. And you know from the beginning, we do good work, and unfortunately, this puts a bad mark on it. I can't wait to see where it goes. Aidan, excellent reporting at Mediaite. I know you got to go. Gene Rossi, I know you cheated on me earlier with Jesse Weber, and so now you got to go too because you don't have enough time for Bob Bianchi, but that's okay. I love you, brother. Thank you guys so much. And for our viewers out there in the Law and Crime Network, I'm obviously steamed. I'm going to wipe myself off during this break, and we're going to come back with more Law and Crime. Stay with us.